A warm good evening to all of you. Welcome to Unacademy's YouTube channel. Let's crack UPSC CSE English. So, as you know, we are doing a crash course on ecology and environment for UPSC CSE Prelims 2020. So, we are doing this. This is a continuation of the same crash course. Today, we'll be discussing about biomes. So the topic today we'll be discussing about biomes. Yesterday we did discuss about some of the biomes concepts, etc., introduction to biomes and tropical evergreen forest biome, etc. So today we'll be continuing we'll be discussing about the remaining biomes. So this is about me. Excuse me. So I'm Venkatesh Emani. So I would be completing this course sooner, and I'm teaching about in this field for more than 7 years right now, so I'm passionate about it. Right, then coming to before discussing about today's session and the whole, let us briefly understand about the platform first. So Unacademy's YouTube, Unacademy's platform, etc. So this is the largest learning platform available online for UPSC, CSE, etc. So what will you get, etc. But first you need to download it, Unacademy Learning app. Please remember, you need to download the Learning app. Yes, you need to download the Learning app, etc. Then what will you get? You will be getting unlimited access to all the top educators continuously, etc. So all the people, all the top educators, so yeah, whether it is Ayush Shangi, Munal Patel, Siddharth Arora, Deepika Reddy Madam, R.P. Mishra, whoever it is, etc. You will get the top educators access regularly, etc. You will not be. It is not like it is. Will be only getting to only one course. You will be getting the courses of all the lecturers, including me. Then what are the special classes you have, etc. So you will be having, as you get into this stream, etc., what you will find is you will find special classes, you will be finding courses, you will be finding MCQs, etc. So all these special classes, these are meant for variations like newspaper analysis, important topics, etc. All these topics will be available in the special classes, etc. What is the advantage you have is, among this is, you'll get flexible schedule, flexibility in time, or flexibility in terms of your own timetable. For example, if you are preparing for if when you are preparing, etc., if you wanted to do in this way, for 1 hour you wanted to prepare for polity, 1 hour you want to prepare for economy, 1 hour you want to prepare for current affairs, international relations, etc., you can divide your day according to the schedules of the classes. So that flexibility will be always be provided to you. Then another flexibility which you have is, you can prepare according to the desired structured courses whichever you are having it. Yes, you can have across the designed structured courses, etc. Whatever the things, etc., you will be having. What are the different structured courses which I am trying to tell you is, say, for example, if you are practicing, if you wanted to practice only MCQs, you can have sessions of MCQs. If you wanted to practice, say, for example, only around about topics, that is a structured course. A structured course, say, for example, as I am now doing on a structured course on ecology and environment. Whatever the method of your choice, both are available for you always, right? Then what will you get, etc., you can always chat with me, etc. There is more kind of it that will help you, like you are feel like you are right in the classroom, etc. Then you will be having interactive polls, you can learn anytime, anywhere. That is the most advantage of Unacademy platform. Even for the remote areas, at whatever the time, etc., you can anywhere, you can get access to all the top educators videos. You can even get it offline. Then coming to the subscription, etc., these are the different subscriptions available, etc. I would like you to choose either 24 months or for 12 months. So either this or this. The reason, because there is a much, you will have so much benefits out of it, etc. Because the per month cost is, it is only 3,333, and here the per month cost is just 2,000. Whereas if you go for 1 month, it is around 8,000. So 24 months is equal to 12 months plus 1 month, that is 40,000 plus 1 month, 48, that is 48. Added to it, if you apply this code VE10, this is a code from me, you will get an additional 10% discount. So what will you get? You will get an additional 10% discount on the revenue gender. On the 48 out of 48,000, you will be getting a 10 additional 10% discount. Added to it, what I would like to tell you is, before this, etc., before this is about the platform, and before starting today's session, a brief understanding about this coronavirus. So I would always tell you, please be, what do you say, take precautions, but don't panic. You always take precautions, but never be in a panic mode. That is the first thing which I'd like to tell you. Then, this is the crisis time for you, as you are not supposed to go, classes are closed, and you might be feeling some anxious as you are, as the exam is approaching, etc. Use this crisis into an opportunity. Sit at your respective homes, places, practice MCQs as many as possible. Whatever the major sessions, doubts, whichever you are having of any separate topics, clear them, prepare well, and accordingly, any doubts you have, you can always contact the educators in the Unacademy platform, where you can, Unacademy is trying to help you at these kind of toughest times. So you can have access to all the top educators. Any kind of queries, you can always ask them. Accordingly, at the same time, which I would also like to tell you is, we are also trying to have as many as 20,000 free classes, so that there is enough opportunity for the students to learn about all these topics and not be in a panic mode. So please, for your advantage, I would like to tell you that as you need to sit at certain place, introspect yourself. Where are you? Where are you standing? How you need to grow? At which are the areas which you are good at? Which are the areas which you are bad at, etc. Then this is the time, as until now you might be roaming from class to home, home to class, and all these things. Now you have time to sit at a certain place and try to read about, try to prepare. So that's what ultimate idea is. Please take precautions, but don't be in a panic mode, and prepare well. Yes. Yes, that's it. So let's start the session for today. A warm good evening to all of you, whoever are watching. Good evening. Then let's start. So as we were discussing yesterday, I have given you a brief understanding about how, what is a biome, and some introduction to the biomes into the concept of equinoxes and solstices. Right? So a bit might be geographical in nature, but that's what, temperature is geographical, rainfall is geographical. There will be some kind of geographical concepts. So what is a biome, etc.? So in simple understanding, if you wanted to tell any person, it is nothing but, biome is nothing but a regions with a similar type of life. Simply regions with similar types of life. So similar types of life is attributed by, so the criteria, temperature. So two major criteria whichever you are having are temperature and precipitation, right? Then other factors, etc. Vegetation, similar vegetation, similar soils more or less, and also similar plants and animals. So what is a biome? A biome is an area where the vegetation, soils, plants and animals in that area will be similar, and they will be having similar types of life. That's what it is called as a biome. So it is a large natural ecosystem wherein all biota have minimum common characteristics and more or less uniform environmental conditions. So plants and animals, more or less you will find one variety of plants and animals, and minimum environmental conditions like temperature and precipitation will be common. That area is called as a biome. What is the difference between a biome and an ecosystem? As I told you in my previous classes so many times, so species, population, one individual species towards a population of different species will form a community. Multiple communities interacting with the surrounding areas is ecosystems. Ecosystems within ecosystem, etc. What is happening, etc. A specific way of living of animals and plants is called as a biome. Multiple biomes make biosphere where life exists. This is what the interaction is supposed to be. So difference between ecosystem and a biome is how it is a different. Ecosystem is simply an interaction of living and non-living things in an environment, whereas biome is a specific geographic area notable for the species living there. A biome can be made up of many ecosystems. Example, aquatic biome. An aquatic biome can contain ecosystems such as coral reefs and kelp forest. So what are kelp forests? Try to Google it. When I discuss coral reefs, I will definitely explain what are kelp forest also. Right. So this is about a biome differentiation, etc. What are you supposed to learn? We are always supposed to learn about these things. So biome is. So how are you learning every topic, whichever you will be studying in this chapters of biome is? First, you will understand location and distribution, where that biome is located and what are the areas which it is covering, location and distribution. Then next you will be covering about what is the criteria of that biome. What is the criteria of the biome in terms of temperature and precipitation. Then what are the unique characteristics of each biome? Unique characteristics. Then what are the animals and plants? Animals and plants, flora and fauna. Then how this flora and fauna are adapting according to the unique climatic conditions which you find here. So their adaptations might be in their physical form, like rabbits having large ears to give off heat, or it might be a functional form like what an organism does. That is, a snake having venom, or a plant secreting, etc., some kind of a harmful toxic elements, etc., to be, so that it can be safe from herbivorous behavioral, certain animals moving away, migration, or else hibernating. All these are types of adaptations. How these adaptations are there in different biomes, this is where questions will be asked. Where questions will be asked is usually about here, and usually about the criteria. This is where questions will be asked, etc. So you need to be aware of that. Then classification of biomes, etc. Different scientists classify biomes in a different way. As you know, they can identify as many different biomes as possible, but usually, etc., how do they identify? They will be identifying as tundra, desert, marine, forest, grassland, freshwater, marine, desert, tundra, right? But some scientists use much more precise classifications, like dozens of different biomes. For example, they consider different types of forest itself will be one type of a biome, terrestrial biomes and aquatic biomes. So what are the different types of forest? Yes, anybody who is watching, think. Different types of forest, tropical forest, rainforest, within tropical region, rainforest, then deciduous forest, then you have shrubs and bushes, then you have temperate forest, multiple variety of forests. You can also consider them as one biome. So broadly, tropical terrestrial biomes, that is land biomes and water biomes. Within land biome, you can divide as much as possible also. So that is about the brief understanding about types of biomes. You can see in this picture what is the diversity of life in a land. So you can see in this picture, you see in the bottom, You see here, this is tropical forest. So this tropical forest, etc. You see the vegetation, canopy vegetation. Then slowly you are moving to deciduous forest. Deciduous forest means slowly, etc. What happens? There will not be as density as you find here. The density will be reducing. Then one variety of forest, coniferous forest, cone shaped variety. Then tundra, polarized. So this is one transition by latitude. So this is equator, around equator. This is between 20 to 30 degrees. Then coniferous, etc. So deciduous will be there. Then coniferous will be around 60 degrees. Then 70 degrees. And finally 90 degrees. Similarly, you can also find in a as altitude increases, the same thing: tropical forest, deciduous forest, coniferous forest, tundra, mountain, ice and snow, etc. as you go across mountain chains. So as you move, for example, from Shivaliks towards the greater Himalayas in India, in the Himalayan range, you can also find the mountains in a similar, in a vegetation in a similar manner as the altitude is changing. So that's it about the diversity. So yesterday we have discussed about tropical evergreen biome, right? In the yesterday's class, we have discussed with the distributions, we have discussed the characteristics, etc. We have discussed the adaptations of animals and plants here, etc. And we have roughly understood. Then next one, today we'll be discussing about another biome, tropical deciduous biome. Tropical deciduous biome. So what do you mean by deciduous? So what do you mean by deciduous? Deciduous means is nothing but shedding of leaves. So deciduous here means shedding of leaves. So where is, so what that's what means, we'll discuss that later on. So briefly, location, where is tropical deciduous biome is their location. In general, it is South Asia and Southeast Asia in particular. That is the monsoonal lands. Monsoonal lands will be having more deciduous. That's why in general we can say South Asia and Southeast Asia is monsoonal lands. So Indian subcontinent, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, that is the Southeast Asia. Vietnam, South China, North Australia, all these are tropical deciduous or monsoonal lands. The latitudes are roughly 10 to 25 degrees north and south latitudes. Within this 10 to 25 degrees north and south, you are finding that variation. You can see in this photograph tropical monsoon regions. So you can see India significantly covered, the Southeast Asia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, all these are significantly covered. North Australia, you can identify in the photograph, North Australia here. So North Australia, then etc. within photos, etc. in East Africa, at the boundaries you are finding it, Madagascar. Then few parts of South America. Broadly, you will find deciduous vegetation in the Asian part. Others are, you will also find similar characteristics. So why you are finding it in the latitudes of 10 to 25 degrees? So please remember, while you are discussing, etc., what are the characteristic features while you discuss for evergreen and deciduous. What is the variation? Evergreen to deciduation, what is the variation? What is the difference? Please understand the difference. Evergreen, forever greener. Why? Because rainfall is high. So high rainfall, here you are finding out. What is deciduous? Shedding of leaves. Why do they shed the leaves? Because rainfall is seasonal. Because temperature and precipitation are the broad criteria and rainfall is varying, you are finding deciduous. Had the rainfall been more here also, the vegetation would have been evergreen and it is an extension of tropical evergreen, but not so. As the rainfall has varied, seasonal variations has occurred, because of which etc. the deciduous biome, the biome has also has changed from evergreen to deciduous. Then what are the characteristics etc. or criteria? Yes, first thing we will be discussing criteria. So now we have completed location and distribution, then criteria. So criteria are which areas you find tropical deciduous biome, that areas will be the characteristics. Yes, criteria or characteristics both will be almost one and the same. So usually the temperature here will be around 25 to 30 degrees centigrade on an average. On an average, you will find temperature 25 to 30 degrees centigrade. Then rainfall 100 to 200 centimeters of rainfall, which is not just distribution throughout the year, but it is predominantly very seasonal. That's why these are called as monsoonal lands. Monsoonal lands. Monsoonal lands. Monsoon is nothing but derived from a word called mausam, which is nothing but season. So please remember, monsoonal lands means seasonal. So here, what is happening? Rainfall. It is in 3 to 4 months of summer. Summer usually means equinoxes, March to September. That is summer in northern hemisphere. So within this summer season, for us in India, June to September is the season for rainfall, southwest monsoon season. June, July, August, September. So 3 to 4 months of summer, you will be having rainfall. That is a characteristic feature. As there is seasonal rainfall, and for post September, you have to wait until June to get significant rainfall. There is significant drought season, or what is it, dry season. That's what it is characterized by distinct dry season and heavy wet season. So the 4 months heavy wet season. In that wet season, you will be having floods, whereas in the dry season etc. you will be having droughts. So two extremes of the monsoons are the characteristics. So summers usually are hot to humid, winters are usually warm to cool, not cold. Warm to cool and dry. Dry means no rainfall. Usually, of course, you also find some rainfall in India even in winter, but usually you find more rainfall only in summer. See, once again, please understand the words whenever I say hot, warm, cool, cold. Hot, warm, cool, cold. There is a variation between hot to warm, variation between warm to cool, and there is a significant variation from cool to cold. Hot, if I say cold, everyone will understand. There is no doubt about that. Yes, but if I say hot to warm, what is warm, what is hot? You need to understand the difference. What is warm and cool? What is cool and cold? That variation you have to understand. As these are varying, the biomes also will be varying from here to here, here to here, and here to here. So that is about things. Then what is the most unique characteristics which you need to remember here is seasonal reversal of winds. Seasonal reversal of winds. 180 degrees between summer and winter. This is the most characteristic feature. So for tropical evergreen forest, what is the characteristic feature which I have discussed yesterday? Double maxima rainfall. Double maxima rainfall and canopy vegetation. The thing which you find here is double maxima rainfall and canopy vegetation. That is the most important characteristic feature. Whereas here etc. the characteristic feature is seasonal reversal of winds. 180 degrees reversal between summer and winter. Say for example in India, what happens? You will be finding etc. southwest winds in this fashion, winds coming from here, southwest winds in the monsoonal season in the June, July, August, September, and post October you will find winds called northeast winds. So our monsoon season, what do you call? Southwest monsoonal wind. monsoon season and northeast monsoon season. Southwest is turning into northeast. That means there is 180 degrees reversal. So the winds which are supposed to move in a straight direction, now they are moving in this fashion. So southwest monsoon is this, northeast monsoon is this. So there is almost a 180-degree tilt. This 180 degrees tilt is a characteristic feature of deciduous. Why? Because this 180 degrees tilt itself will help for a for creation of distinct dry season. Had the distinct dry season is not formed, do you think that deciduous is formed? The distinct dry season is formed because of the less rainfall which you received, and that's why the vegetation has become deciduous. So please understand this point very significantly. Yes. So that's what seasonal reversal of winds will be summer and winter. So what is the difference between equatorial forest and deciduous forest? Is rainfall in 3 to 4 months of summer, because of which there is a distinct dryness. As there is a distinct dryness, the kind of animals and plants which you find here will be varying. So less rainfall, trees are having characteristic feature of deciduous, of shedding of leaves. This is their adaptation. So you see the photo here. This is the typical photo which you can call of a tropical deciduous forest. See the density, there is much lesser, there is much more gap here. Whereas if you see the tropical evergreen forest, you see the density very high, right? So this is tropical evergreen forest, and this is the tropical deciduous forest. So whenever you discuss about this biomes, the first picture you should get is this. When I say tropical deciduous biome, etc., our landscape in general, India's landscape, of course, there are, see, in India you will find deserts, you will find equatorial forest, everything. But in general, significantly, majority of our trees will be in this fashion, right? Majority of vegetation will be in this fashion. So this picture should be coming to. Whenever you talk deciduous, you have to get this picture. Whenever you talk about equatorial, you have to get the previous picture. So what do you find here? Characteristics now, because of the less dense, yes, density is very less. You have studied here. Trees are of medium height. Yes, trees will not be very high. Trees will be of medium height. Why? Why trees will be of medium height? Energy, rainfall, photosynthesis will not be as high as you find in evergreen forest. See, compare. Always try to compare and correlate the biomes. You will understand the differences. Then, why forests are deciduous? Because of dry period. Forests are deciduous because of dry period. So dry period we have discussed now. Then forests in general have a parkland landscape, that is trees are mostly stunted and widely spaced and are interspaced with patches of grasses. You can find interspace between patches of grasses. Because these of this variety, what happens here is the species which you find here are teak, sal, sisam, arjun, bamboo, sandalwood, mulberry. I think you heard this word, sandalwood. One of the prominent smuggler, Virappan. Yes, Virappan, sandalwood smuggler. Where do you find him? Usually you will find in the forests of Karnataka, Tamil Nadu. Why? That is a place where sandalwood is significantly grown. Then what are the species? Teak, sal, sisam, arjun, bamboo, sandalwood. Then what is the significance, etc.? They yield valuable timber as they are durable. Another thing, etc., with this forest is they are the most exploited and commercially important. Commercially very important. As they are commercially very important, over a period of time They are most exploited resources. Why they are more exploited resources? Because it is less dense and you find more variety of species, etc. Exploitation, lumbering as an activity, that is cutting of the trees, is much easier when you compare that with the evergreen forest. That's why they are very very exploited. And almost 50% more than 50 percentage of India's forest resources are from this biome, tropical deciduous biome. Right? So then what other animals which you find here? We will be finding lions, tigers, lions, tigers. Yes, where do you find lions in India? Gir forest, tigers, so many areas, etc. We have more than 50 project tiger areas, tiger reserve areas, tiger reserves. Do you find that tigers apart from these 50 tiger reserves? Definitely yes. Elephants, rhinoceros, leopards. Do you think leopards in India have been vanished, extinct? Leopards, are they extinct? No. What are the animals which are extinct? Cheetah. Cheetah is extinct, not leopard. So what do you do? In Google, type leopard, tiger, cheetah. Observe the differences on the spots on these animals and the stripes on these animals. You will understand. Then spotted deer, then sambar deer, huge variety of birds, lizards, snakes, tortoises, etc. All these are found in our country. Significantly, elephants, leopards, snakes. These are the most significant conflicts humans have with the animals. Man-animal conflict. That is the interactions of the needs of the animals and the needs of the man, humans. When they come together, there is a clash. That conflict is man-animal conflict. Because of these animals, there is significant conflict in our country. Then, these are the rice bowls of the world. As these are monsoonal lands, these are regarded as rice bowls of the world. Anyhow, this is beyond biomes. Biomes discussion is only until what are the characteristics of that biome. These characteristics are formed because of climate, significantly by temperature and precipitation. Then because of these characteristics, what adaptations of animals and plants or what varieties of plants and animals you find. That's it. If you add all the social life, agricultural life, industries, minerals, human population. Yes. So these are the things about tropical deciduous. So we have moved from tropical deciduous. So next one we will be discussing about is tropical grasslands. Tropical grasslands. What do you call them? You can always also call as savannas or Sudan climate. Savannas or Sudan climate. Then what are these tropical grasslands? These are the transition between equatorial forests which are evergreen, and deserts. So the transition, the areas between these two are called as tropical grasslands. Predominantly you will find in Africa, Sudan, Nigeria, Uganda, Kenya, Namibia. Then South America, some of the places we call them Llanos and Campos, are the tropical grasslands which you find in these areas. So as you can see in this photograph, these are the areas which you find savannas. You can see this is the equatorial forest. Equator is here. This is an equatorial forest which you find the red color. Okay, I'll shade in a different color. So this is evergreen forest. This is desert. So the transition. This is savannas. Similarly, this is desert, Namibian and Kalahari deserts, and this is the transition. Similarly, here this is a desert. On one side you are finding it. Similarly, here desert. So this is what. Similarly, in India also you can find some kind of savanna. Simply, in which places of India do you find more wildlife? Which states have very significant wildlife? Wild animals, big animals, cats, etc. Usually, huge national parks are found in Karnataka and even in Madhya Pradesh. Why Madhya Pradesh? One side, eastern side, western side, desert. Other side, significant, some decent rainfall. Karnataka. One side, Kerala. On another side, etc. The rain shadow region of Western Ghats. So transition. That's what you are saying. Transition between equatorial forests and deserts. Usually where you find Africa, Sudan, Nigeria, Kenya, Namibia. All these are Zimbabwe. All these things are important tropical grassland areas. In South Africa, in South America, they are called as Llanos and Campos. So these are the different names. Then, what is the landscape? This is the landscape. So as I told you, every biome, you need to remember the landscape. So landscape here. This is the landscape. What is the landscape? One tree supported by significant grasses. Why only grasses? Why not trees? Why? Rainfall will be much more lesser. Then what is the difference between monsoons and savannas? Savannas, definitely you always find one compulsory drought season, whereas monsoons, etc., the extent of drought is lesser when compared with savannas. So that means what? Very high rainfall in evergreen, medium rainfall in deciduous, and medium to low rainfall in savannas. That's the difference, right? So you see what are the temperatures you find here. Temperatures will be around, average temperatures is around 18 degrees only. That is not at all that's why these are all tropical regions. Definitely temperature will be decently good enough, right? 18 degrees. But temperature, that's what, summers are warm to hot to very hot. Summers are hot and also very hot. Then winters are warm to cool, not cold. Warm to cool. So average, that's why the average temperature is around 18 degrees centigrade. Then what do you find? You find rainfall in summer but less than monsoons. How much rainfall? 50 to 80. You see evergreen. See, if you see, this is the scale. 200 centimeters rainfall here and this is 0 centimeters. As the scale is varying, what happens? This is evergreen. Then until 150 to 100 you will find evergreen. In some areas you also find semi evergreen. Why? Rainfall is slowly reducing. More than 250 evergreen, around 200 semi evergreen. Then as it reduces etc., 150 to 100 etc., this here it will be deciduous. Then 100 will come to 50. This will be around 50. It will be 100 to 50. Then savannas, grasses. Why grasses are grown? Because the climate cannot support big trees. It can only support grass. Then beyond that, except after 50, deserts, bushes and shrubs. So, what is the difference between monsoons and savannas? Rainfall is much more lesser than monsoons, 50 to 80. What did you write in the, for rainfall in what do you say in monsoons? You see here 100 to 200 centimeters of rainfall. 100 to 200 centimeters of rainfall. Right. What did you write here? 50 to 80 centimeters of rainfall. So rainfall is varying, hence you are finding this variation. Because of this, what happens? You will be having tall grass and short trees. You can see tall grass, these are the grasses, and short trees. Look at that vegetation. The first thing, evergreen, thickness, density very high, deciduous, slowly density is reducing, and coming to savannas, only few trees, more grasses. Why? No support for trees. So tall grass and short trees. Elephant grass, the height might be 15 feet, almost around 2.5 persons. Yes, on an average, you can say 2.5. Elephant grass, so much big grasses. What kind of vegetation you find here is acacia vegetation. What is acacia vegetation? Is nothing but bushes and shrubs found in the warm climate. We call that vegetation as acacia bushes. You can call it as acacia vegetation. It is a group of trees. A group of trees found in Africa is called acacia. So what is acacia? Group of a gene of trees. Group or gene of trees which are found in Africa is called acacia. It is nothing but this type of bushes. Then one of the next one. What do you need to discuss now? Adaptations. So location, yes, you understood. Distribution, the names I have given you. After location, distribution, climate, you understood. Characteristics, that is tall grasses and stunted trees. Then what are the adaptations? There is another thing which you need to understand. Then we'll come to the adaptations. This region is called as what? Big game country. Big game country. So why? Prey predator relationship is very established. The moment I say wildlife, immediately which picture will come into your mind? Africa. Why? So much amount of wildlife. You can see in this picture so much amount of wildlife which is found, etc. Why? Savannas are the known for wildlife centers. That's why you are having here rich wildlife. It is called as hunter's paradise. What is safaris? What is rich wildlife and what are called as safaris? Safaris are nothing but where animals we are able to see at their original habitat. Safaris are the places where we are going to places where habitat of animals are located. It is not like they are nearer to a zoo. Zoo, though, in order to see the animals, you are going from your home. Of course, zoos are not pet animals, but zoos are located very nearer to humans for tourism. Whereas habitat, etc., original places which you are going and visiting them. That's why it is called as safaris. As there is rich wildlife, there is a and it is called as hunter paradise. What is the adaptation which they have? Camouflaged species. The species are extremely camouflaged with respect to the surrounding areas. For example, you can see this photograph. This is a, which animal it is? Let's try to identify which animal. Yes, anybody who is watching live, etc., please do answer which animal it is. Few seconds. Yes, nobody has not responding. Anyhow, this is a cheetah. So the black stripe which you find from mouth towards its ear, towards its eye, is it? That black stripe whichever you find, we call those animals as cheetah. So that is a difference between a leopard, cheetah, and all these things, etc. Then how can you identify that is through this. Then you can see the color of cheetah and the surrounding areas, similar color, camouflage species. There are so many videos, as a tiger, lions, all these things, etc. They are camouflage. We are difficult to identify in the background, right? And why this is rich wildlife is there are so much amount of animals here. Do you know that a leopard and a tiger, a lion, for example, take a lion and a leopard, or rather take cheetah. Cheetah is the fastest animal. Lion, the size of a lion usually don't eat deer. What did I say? Usually they don't eat deer. Why? The lion usually hunt big buffaloes, wild buffaloes and all, etc. They'll be hunting those things rather than a small deer. For a lion, deer is a what is it? Snack. It's a snack. Big buffalo, they weigh around more than 1000 kgs. 1000 kgs buffalo, lion, etc. A lion will hit a buffalo which is weighing 1000 kgs, so that they get more food. Whereas a deer, etc., when they don't get buffaloes, when they are very much hungry, usually they try to hunt. Otherwise, they don't try to hunt a deer. Whereas a cheetah, it cannot hunt the big buffaloes because three cheetahs will make a lion. The size of a lion and the size of a cheetah, etc. Three cheetahs will make a lion. So the prey predator relationship is well established. This means this. The kind of food available for one big animals, the kind of food available for another big animals, there is well established prey predator relationship. This prey predator relationship is the reason why you are finding so much amount of rich wildlife. As there is rich wildlife, there is so much tourism, safaris, and in the past it is called as hunter's paradise because so many animals you can hunt. Of course, now there is so much amount of protection for the wild animals, and where hunting is banned in so many of the areas, it is legally not correct to do it. Yes. Moving forward, etc. This is what you'd like to say about camouflage species and all. These are the characteristics and adaptations, etc. One of the adaptation which you find is one of a tree called baobab trees. So these baobab trees have adapted to the dry season. That is adapted to the dry season that the savanna experiences and now able to store water in their large trunks to prepare for lack of water in the dry season. So to prepare water for lack of water in the dry seasons, what is that? Lack of water in the dry season, they are adapting. How are they adapting? They are able to store water in their large trunks. So, and another point, this bark, the shiny and the slightly outer bark, whichever it has is, they have an adaptation of reflect light and heat so that it is always cooler in the intense savanna sun. As you see in this picture, if there is so much amount of sunlight in the daytime, this might be a picture in the morning sunrise or sunset time, sunrise time, etc. What I'm trying to tell you is, in the afternoon there will be so much amount of heat, this bark and all, etc., they have the capacity to reflect sunlight so that they are able to carry the moisture, and whatever the moisture which is there, they're able to store. They have storage capacities which will be used in case of a dry season, which is a definite characteristics. Dry is definite. So this is what the adaptation of a baobab tree. Then you can see in this photograph, as the vegetation is varying, so initially you are finding out what? You are finding savannas. So where savannas has one isolated tree surrounded by grasses. Isolated tree with grasses is which country's landscape? Savanna country landscape. That's what you need to remember. Isolated tree with grasses. Then as the vegetation changes to dwarfs, acacias and scrubs, savannas, etc., slowly we are moving towards desert plants. See, rainfall, which is around 50 to 80 centimeters here, there will be more rainfall towards the equatorial region, towards equatorial, and there will be less rainfall here. This is towards the desert region. So that's what you see. Scrub savanna, bushes and scrubs you also find in deserts. So a few areas are scrub savannas which are found here. So this is a transition area between a desert and a savanna. And as you find more rainfall, as rainfall is see here it is less than 50, here it is 50, here it is 80. Slowly the kind of 80 centimeters rainfall. Slowly the rainfall is varying, vegetation is varying. Next level, straight away more rainfall you will be finding. You might not find monsoon here in Africa, and next level you will straight away find tropical evergreen forest, which rainfall is more than 200 centimeters. So this is the adaptations you find here. Then similarly, elephants, they also have adapted to the dry season by developing their massive bodies to obtain a physical strength that enables them to tear open the trunk of a baobab tree. So they can tear open the trunk of a baobab tree, through which an elephant can get the share of water and prevent dehydration during the dry season. Then next point, there is a homework to you. What is a tusker? Why elephants are called as tuskers? Try to identify, you will understand so much things. Right? I hope it is clearer to you. You have understood the concepts well. So the two major concepts today which you have discussed are tropical grasslands biome and savanna biome. Understand, always compare with the kind of things which you have, right? So compare the things with monsoons. So what did you discuss until now? Tropical evergreen forest to monsoons, monsoons to savannas. So what is the difference between these two? What is the difference between these two? Where they are varying? Please understand. Right? Next, we will be discussing deserts. Tropical deserts. So if you find it out, So before discussing about deserts, we will be discussing about something called pressure belts. So we will be briefly discussing about pressure belts and wind systems, global winds. We'll be discussing about that, and then we will move forward to the concept of tropical desert. Why did I am why am now once again these are geographical concepts. Why I'm telling you about geographical concepts? Because they have a significant influence of deserts, how are they formed, etc. So that is the reason why I'm trying to explain all the pressure belts. As you know, temperature, as you know, temperature, you are getting sunlight energy from insolation, you will get temperature. Temperature to pressure, pressure to winds, winds will create rainfall. Rainfall is a significant of vegetation. Vegetation is the characteristic feature of a biome which you are studying. So for understanding this biome, how this vegetation is formed, you need to understand this linkage so that you are understanding broadly about rainfall. Yesterday we have discussed about equinoxes and solstices, because that will briefly understanding about what you say temperature, right? So broadly, how many pressure belts you have? You have around 7 pressure belts. So 1, equatorial low pressure belt; 2, subtropical high pressure belt; 3, subpolar low pressure belt. So I can also say, for example, subtropical high pressure belt in the northern hemisphere and also in the southern hemisphere. So 2, so 2 plus 1 here, this might be called as 3. Then subpolar low pressure belt, let us give the name 4. So this is 4 subpolar low pressure belt, similarly in the southern hemisphere. Then high pressure belt in the northern hemisphere, high pressure belt in the southern hemisphere. 7. So total 7 pressure belts. As you move across the globe, what you find is you are finding a distinct pressure belts. Belt is nothing but continuous area like a range. So around the equator, what you are finding here is around the equator, what are you finding is equatorial low pressure belt. So why it is low pressure? Because temperature is high. Why high temperature? Vertical sun rays. As this area you receive more vertical sun rays, etc. So what do you find here in this part? Imagine this is the surface. So sun's rays will be more vertical here in nature rather than more slantness. So there is no slantness in this region which you are receiving. It is more vertical in nature. More vertical in nature, more energy transferred. More energy means more temperature. So high temperature, etc. is the reason why you are finding equatorial low pressure belt. So this equatorial low pressure belt, etc. So where are they found? They are found between the latitudes of 10 degrees north to 10 degrees south. That is 0 degrees to 10 degrees, 0 degrees to 10 degrees north and south latitude. So this is 10, 0. This is roughly 10 and 10. You can imagine roughly as 10. So between these areas you are finding a low pressure area. Why it is a low pressure area? Because of high temperature. That's now we have discussed. Right? Because of this low pressure area, what is happening is winds are attracted towards it. We can see global winds, etc. called trade winds. They are attracted towards it. What are these winds, etc.? We will be discussing that also now. So as of now, what you need to understand is, as there is a broad linkage between these two things. So because there is a pressure belt here, etc., because of the temperature, low pressure is formed. Because of high temperature, winds will be attracted towards. So these are zones of convergence. Zones of convergence. Winds are converging towards it. So you can see from the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, winds are moving towards it. That's why these are called as zones of convergence. Now what happens to these winds are, at this, all the winds which are coming here, because of the high temperature, the winds will be evaporated. As you know, every air particle will expand as it rises, as it heats up. As it expands, the winds becomes lighter. As they become lighter, they see, because of high temperature, every molecule will be expanding. As they expand, they become lighter. As they expand, they become lighter, etc. They move above the Earth's surface. So they are now vertically uplifted. They rise. That is, because they become lighter, the wind as a whole will be rising. Now what happens to the wind? The wind, whichever is rising here, they go to around certain point around until the point of tropopause. So around 8 to 18 kilometers tropopause, usually at the average 13 kilometers height from the surface. So 13 kilometers height from the surface, roughly the average. They move as the winds move, etc. until to this point. Then they start taking turns because they cannot go into outer space. They'll be moved towards the poles. As they move at around 25 to 30 degrees latitudes, at around these latitudes in the upper atmosphere, what do they is? They subside. What are they happening? They are subsiding. As they are subsiding, what happens? These areas, subtropical high pressure areas, what is happening? The wind is subsiding from the upper atmosphere to the lower atmosphere. So let me explain to you again, once again. So imagine this is equator. Sorry, imagine this is the line. This is 0 degrees equator. This is 30 degrees. This is 60 degrees. This is 90 degrees. So northern hemisphere, 90 degrees north latitude, 30 degrees latitude, 0 degrees equator. So India will be around here. Then similarly here 30 degrees south, 60 degrees south and 90 degrees south. So what happens here? What I am trying to tell you is winds here, because of the low pressure belt, because of high temperature, air molecules will expand. As they expand, they become lighter. As they become lighter, they rise. They move to around average around 13 kilometers. You see tropopause, the line where troposphere ends and stratosphere starts, it is until around 18 kilometers at equator. Why? Because there is more heat, there is more height which the air particles can move. Now what is happening here? The air whichever is rising here, as it rose, it will move towards poles in the upper atmosphere at the point of troposphere 18 kilometers. Then at around certain point it start deflecting towards the south. It is start subsiding towards the surface. So at the surface what happens is you are getting winds from upper atmosphere to the ground level. Winds are in this fashion, that is winds are moving from upper atmosphere to the ground level. So this entire region, what they are finding at is there is more wind vertical movement from upper atmosphere, from upper atmosphere to the ground level, to the ground level. We call it as that as what? We call it as wind subsidence. Wind subsidence. So what is happening? Winds are subsiding. Now, for why I'm telling you all these things is, for rainfall to occur, we should have moisture, and then the wind should, or the air here, wind should rise. Only when the wind rises, precipitation as a activity, condensation as an activity will start. Without wind rising, how can rainfall can occur? So because these areas are significantly having wind subsidence, there is less rainfall in this region. That is the reason why they turn into deserts. So what I am trying to tell you is, all the hot deserts of the world, all the hot deserts, all we will be located within these latitudes. Subtropical high pressure belt. The hot deserts will be located only in these latitudes. Why they are called as horse latitudes? Why they are called as horse latitudes? I will explain later. Before that, this is what I am trying to say here. Whatever the wind is there, the air expands because of immense heat in this 0 degrees. Right? In this 0 degrees, the air expands here. As the air expands, etc., it becomes lighter, it rises. As it rises, etc., at the point of troposphere, it deflects. As it deflects, it will start subsiding around 20 to 30 degrees latitudes. As it deflects, etc., what happens is the ground level, that is the surface. At the surface, what you find is wind is subsiding. As there is more significant wind subsidence, that is wind moving from upper atmosphere to lower atmosphere, there is less opportunity for the winds to rise. Less opportunity for the winds to rise means less rainfall. And once again, what happens here on the ground level? At the ground level, so winds, just a minute. So this is the line. So winds which have subsided until 30 degrees, this is a high pressure area, this is a low pressure area. Winds move from high pressure to low pressure. They move in this fashion on the ground level. These winds which are moving from subtropical high pressure belt to equatorial low pressure belt are called as southeast trade winds in the southern hemisphere and northeast trade winds in the northern hemisphere. If you can see in this picture clearly, etc., what is happening at the ground level between the subtropical high pressure belts and the equatorial low pressure belt, there are winds are moving from high pressure to low pressure. As there is high pressure, how this high pressure, subtropical high pressure is formed? Because there is wind subsidence. because there is wind subsidence, there is concentration of wind at the ground level. Concentration of the wind at the ground level turn to high pressure. And at the equator, what happens? Because the wind as a whole is expanding, becomes lighter and rising above. As the winds rise at the equator, as they are rising, there is less air pressure here created, because that's why it is called low pressure. Concentration of wind, concentration of air molecules is high pressure. Dilution of air pressure is low pressure. This is the reason why low pressure and high pressures are formed. So equatorial low pressure belt. So I'm trying to explain to you why pressure belts are formed. So equatorial low pressure belt, subtropical high pressure belt, etc. Similarly, you will also find high pressure belt in the areas of high pressure belt in the areas of 90 degrees to 80 degrees north and southern latitude. Similarly, there is a subpolar low pressure belt in the latitudes of 60 degrees latitudes. Why there is subpolar low pressure belt? Low pressure belt is because of a combinations of here wind and the the shape of the earth. As the earth is a geoid shape here, what happens is the winds here will be whirling out. Whirling, that is, winds will be circulating, etc., will not be concentrating on the earth's surface, and they'll be whirling it. As they whirl out, etc., we are handling some kind of issues here. So there is no high pressure. See, 60 degrees to 90 degrees, this entire region temperature is low. If temperature is low, pressure should be high. That's what you are finding at these areas. But why, despite temperature being low, why pressure is also low? Because there is a dynamic factor. What is that? Because there is a dynamic factor. What is the dynamic factor? The dynamic factor is circulation, wind whirling. Wind whirling. Why it is wind whirling? Because of the shape of the earth. Because of the shape of the earth. So, anyhow, forget about the the reasons why you are finding around the pressure belts, etc., in this fashion. So that is one thing. So there are two aspects. One aspect which I have explained right now is why the pressure belts are created. Second aspect is where are they located. I have given a brief understanding of why they are located, but still this is a much more deeper concept. We will discuss as part of geography later on. As of now, just I wanted to give you a brief understanding. So because of this equatorial low pressure belt, why it is equatorial low pressure belt is formed? Because of high temperature. And here what happens? It is a zone of wind subsidence. So whatever the winds, the trade winds which are coming here, they are gaining the winds, except their winds are converging here and they are moving into the earth's into the atmosphere. Horse latitudes. Why these are then subtropical high pressure belt? They are formed because of wind subsidence. Why these are wind subsidence? Because the upper atmosphere winds are subsiding at this place. Why these are called horse latitudes? In the ancient days, when the ships are moving in this area, what they tend to is the ancient ships which are not mechanized. The ancient ships which are not mechanized, they are carrying about horses. At around these places, as there is only wind subsidence, there is only vertical wind, no horizontal winds. No horizontal winds, only vertical. Because of this, ships as a whole, the entire ships, they are becoming stagnant. They can't move forward. Why? No winds. In order to lighten ships, to reduce their weight, what they tend to do is they used to throw away the horses into the sea. So what is the thing, etc.? It is nothing but horse latitudes. Means in the ancient days, because of lack of mechanized ships, all the ancient ships which are supposed to be blown by wind, as they become As they become stagnant, ships becoming stagnant, to lighten the ship, that is reduce weight, what they used to do, they used to throw the horses into the ocean. As they used to throw the horses into the ocean, only at around these latitudes, not here, not here, or not here. Why? Because at these latitudes the ships are always moving because of the wind movement, whereas here they are unable to move. Because of this, they used to throw away the horses. That is the reason why they are called as horse latitudes. Whereas now all the ships are mechanized. Now you are having mechanized ships. They are not depending on the winds. They are depending on the fuels, fossil fuels. So all the ships are mechanized. Now you are not having any kind of issues with these things. But in the ancient days, definitely yes. I hope this point is clearer. Why horse latitudes? No wind movement, but horizontally. No horizontal movement. Why? Because there is only vertical movement. Why there is vertical movement? Because the winds, the circulation of the winds which are coming from the equatorial low pressure belt are subsiding at around these places. So this is the reason why it is called subtropical high pressure belt, etc. Anyhow, this is the broad understanding which you need to have. So first one, equatorial low pressure belt. What is the area location? What is the significance? Subtropical high pressure belt. What is the area? What is the location? If you have understood these things, you have understood pressure belts. You have understood pressure belts. Next thing you need to understand wind belts or global wind systems. Global wind systems. So we'll discuss that right now. Winds blowing almost in the same direction throughout the year are called as prevailing or permanent winds. Winds blowing in same direction throughout the year are called as prevailing or permanent winds. They involve large areas on the globe. So they are the permanent winds, whichever are blowing in the same direction. Same direction. So that is which are blowing in the same direction, etc. throughout the year are called as permanent winds, and they involve larger areas of the globes. Winds with seasonal changes in their direction are called seasonal winds. Winds blowing in a particular locality are called local winds. We have leave about this. So we are talking about larger areas, etc. winds. Now these are the winds which we have discussed until now. So you see here the winds which are blowing between this part, equatorial low pressure belt and subtropical high pressure belt, are called as trade winds. They blow between equatorial low pressure belt and subtropical high pressure belt. They are called as northeast trade winds in the northern hemisphere and southeast trade winds in the southern hemisphere, as you see by the direction. See, any wind, etc., it is always named with the directions. Winds always named with the origin, not the direction. Sorry, I'll tell you that. What is that? You see, north, south, east, west. News, News. News is information of the different corners of the earth. The word is derived from this news, right? So then northeast, southwest. So southwest monsoons. If I say a wind is called southwest, this is the direction, right? South and west. This is the direction. So any wind which is blowing in this direction, we call it as what? Southwest. Any wind which is blowing in this direction, we call it as what? Southerly winds. Any wind which is blowing in this direction, we call it as what? Northerly winds. This is northerly winds. This is southerly winds. This is southwest winds. It is always the origin, not the path. is not the path, it is always the origin through which they, what do you say, direction for a wind is derived. Whenever any person says wind as a northerly wind, it means it is originating from north. Southerly winds originating from south. So southwest means winds originating from southwest. Moving in this direction is southwest. Southeast means this. Northeast means northeast winds means this. Northwest means this. Right? Origin. It is always the origin. So what happens to these trade winds is, why do they are trading in blowing in southwest northeast? One of the wind will be affecting, which the wind effect they have is called Coriolis force. What is this? Coriolis force. What is Coriolis force, etc.? Coriolis is a scientist where based on which name he is deflected. This Coriolis force is nothing but it is an effect of rotation of the earth. Rather, it is not a force, it is an effect. It is an effect of rotation of the earth. Any object, any freely moving body which is in motion is affected by it. Say, for example, winds, aircrafts, ocean currents, etc. It also affects the wind direction. It is zero at the equator and increases towards the poles. It deflects the wind to the right direction in the northern hemisphere and towards the left in the southern hemisphere. So it deflects towards the wind to the right direction in the northern hemisphere and to the left in the southern hemisphere. So why does it deflects? Because you see, this is an effect of rotation of the earth. What you do is, go to a, you imagine that you are located here. Okay. For example, imagine this is Hyderabad. Okay, Hyderabad. Okay, let us take a hypothetical case of where from Hyderabad or from this point you are trying to bomb a place in say Pakistan, Karachi. So you need to send your missile from Hyderabad to Karachi. Yes, this is the target. So as you are sending a missile, by the time the missile which starts from Hyderabad and moves towards Karachi, Karachi will not be located here, but Karachi will be located here. Why? The entire atmosphere, the wind, there is rotation of the earth which is happening. As the earth rotates from west to east, every places will be moving. So by the time you come here, what happens? Karachi will be located here and you will be hitting your friendly country of Iran. So our friendly country of Iran, etc. will be impacting it. So now what you need to do? As everyone knows the impacts of the rotation of the earth, the original path on a map will be showing something like this. Whereas in a actual path which is actually followed will be around something very different from the path which is shown here. The actual path will be around this. So what happens? The original is this. Actual path is green color. There is a deflection towards the right. Right? Similarly, now this is equator. Imagine this is Hyderabad once again, and this is Sydney, somewhere here, Sydney. So the original path of a helicopter or an aircraft which is supposed to move, say it is in this fashion, Hyderabad to Sydney. This is the path which you are supposed to move. But larger distance need to be covered, and Sydney, what happens? As the aircraft starts from here, by the time the aircraft comes to Sydney in this position, Sydney will not be located here because the earth is not static. The earth is a moving body. the earth is rotating, the earth rotates, Sydney will be somewhere around here, right? So there is a distance. Now what happens? The original path on a map is this red color, and the actual path which is supposed to be followed is from here, right? So you are meeting here. So this is the actual path which is supposed to be followed, and this is the red color is the original path on a map. Actual path is the green color. Now what happens in the southern hemisphere? Deflection is towards the left. In the northern hemisphere, deflection is towards the right. You can see in the photograph here, whether it is an aircraft, whether it is in a water body of ocean currents, whether it is a missile, whether it is a wind system, every freely moving body will deflect towards the right in the northern hemisphere, towards left in the southern hemisphere. This effect is because of Coriolis force. Similarly, if you find here, winds are supposed to move from low pressure to high pressure. Sorry, winds supposed to move from high pressure to low pressure. That means winds are supposed to move in this direction. But so why the winds are moving from high pressure to low pressure? Because of wind difference. So the pressure difference. Why are they deflecting towards the left in the south? Because of Coriolis force. That's why these winds which are supposed to move in this fashion, they are moving in this fashion. So as they are originating from southeast winds. So as I have seen the photograph just now, I have explained news. They are moving in this fashion. The originating is southeast. These winds are called as southeast winds. Similarly, in the north, what happens? This is equator. Now winds are supposed to move from high pressure to low pressure. This is high pressure and this is low pressure, equatorial. But now the deflection is towards the, see, this is the origin. So imagine from that point, this is right side and this is left side. Left, this is right. So winds will deflect towards the right in the northern hemisphere. They will deflect. As they are deflecting right, once again, winds are moving in this fashion. This is north, this is east, this is called northeast winds. That's why these are called northeast trade winds. I hope it is clearer to you. Yes, anybody who are watching it live, are you following? Is it clear? Any doubts? Please, if you are having any doubts, please raise it in the comment section. I am here to help you. Right. So I hope this Coriolis force is clearer to you now. So what is Coriolis force? It is an effect of rotation of the earth. Any object which is in motion is affected by it. That is the wind, aircraft, ocean currents. It affects the wind direction. It is zero at the equator. Why it is zero at the equator? Say, example, you are moving from Nairobi to Singapore. Based on my example, Nairobi and Singapore more or less are located on the equator. If they are located on the equator, there is no need for shifting. Once again, you see, Hyderabad is located in the northern hemisphere. Equator, Sydney is located here. So if you are locating on two places on the equator, there will be no deflection. So as you can see in this diagram, there is no deflection in the equator. There is deflection towards the right in the northern hemisphere. There is deflection towards the left in the southern hemisphere. Right, this is what Coriolis force is. Now coming to the trade winds. Now you come. What are trade winds? Trade winds blow between equatorial low pressure belt and subtropical high pressure belt. What are trade winds? They are the winds which are blowing between equatorial low pressure belt and subtropical high pressure belt. They are called as northeast trade winds in the northern hemisphere and southeast trade winds in the southern hemisphere. Why they are called as so? Because of the deflection of the wind systems. Then what happens? They bring moisture to the eastern margins of the continent and a source of rainfall. So what is that? Once again, let me explain to you this point. If you can see in this diagram, imagine this is at the equator, right? Equator. Now this is subtropical high pressure belt. This is subtropical high pressure belt. In between you are supposed to have what kind of winds? As you can see in this photograph, you are supposed to have between equatorial low pressure belt, equator and subtropical high pressure belt, you are supposed to have northeast trade winds. So here winds are supposed to move in this direction, northeast trade winds. Imagine this whole block, whichever you have written here, the rectangle, this whole block is a continent. Okay. Now what happens? The winds are blowing more or less in northeast. You will not find southeast here. Southwest, right? You will majorly find northeast. Herely you will majorly find southeast. You will not find winds moving in this direction here. So what happens? If this is the entire continent, this entire continent is only getting rainfall only from the eastern side, not to the western side of a continent. So see, the entire block is this is entire continent. Imagine so. Within the continent, the eastern side will be provided rainfall. The western side will not be provided any rainfall because the global winds are not moving from that direction. They are moving from this direction. Only when winds coming from ocean to land, they carry moisture. So then they can provide rainfall. So what I am trying to say is, even in this part there is a wind movement, the same northeast trade winds, but these northeast trade winds, they are carrying moisture and give rainfall only in the eastern side, and by the time they come to western side, they will not have any moisture. They become what? They become dry. Northeast trade winds only give rainfall to eastern margins of the continent, doesn't give rainfall to western margins of the continent. Why doesn't give rainfall? Dry, they become dry. Please remember, winds will always be there, but winds will become dry. That's what the significance of trade winds are. See, they bring moisture to the eastern margins of the continents and are a source of rainfall, increases towards equator. Hot deserts of the western margins of the continents. Hot deserts at western margins of the continents in tropical or subtropical areas, etc. You will not find any kind of rainfall here. This is one of the significant factor for desert formation. So they converge at equatorial low pressure belt and intertropical convergence zone (ITCZ). They help that. Why they are called as trade winds? It is because they help the traders and merchants in the crossing the oceans, etc. Because as this is equator, this is northeast winds and this is southeast winds. What happens? If any person wanted to move from this point to this point, they are helping the traders to move. That's why they are called as trade winds. That was how many people in geography will tell you, but certain people don't agree with that way. They say trade meaning is derived from a Spanish word which is meaning path or a track. Path or a track. So path or a track, that is what the meaning of a trade means, because trade here talks about a finance word which means constant. As the equatorial low pressure belt which is constantly formed throughout the year, the winds which are constantly blowing throughout it are called as trade winds. The winds which are constantly blowing towards it are called as trade winds. So that is what one meaning suggests. But some people suggest that it also helped the traders and merchants in crossing the oceans. Hence, it is called as trade winds. So that's why I told you trade winds nothing to do with the trade. This is the most politically what do you say exact meaning. But some people, because of its significance of helping the traders, they simply also call it as trade winds. Anyhow, forget about the origins. Try to understand that because of the rainfall, because of the trade winds, eastern margins of the continents are given rainfall, western margins of the continent are not given rainfall by trade winds. So why am I discussing this in detail? Why in detail? Because biomes are combinations of temperature and precipitation, that is rainfall. Yesterday equinoxes and solstices. Today these wind systems, because wind systems provide the rainfall. Because the tropical areas are broadly controlled. Tropical areas broadly controlled by trade winds. Trade winds will determine which areas they have to provide rainfall, which areas they have not provide rainfall. As you see in this diagram, as you see in this diagram, so 0 degrees to 25 degrees, this entire region, this is the tropical region. Tropical region. This entire tropical region is significantly influenced by trade winds. Why? Trade winds give rainfall to eastern margins of the continent. Eastern margins. No rainfall to western margins of the continent. Because of which biomes also will be impacted. This is what you need to know. So let's move towards, before discussing westerlies and all, let us move towards now the tropical desert biome. So tropical desert biome. So why these are areas are called as tropical deserts? First, understand location. Where are they located? They are located in the latitudes of 20 to 35 degrees north and south latitudes, only at western side. You can see in this photograph, this is Mojave Desert. So it is also called as Mojave. In the south it is called Mexican. In between it is also called as Sonoran Desert. Sonoran Desert. So this is a tropical desert biome which are also a Californian desert. The Great Los Angeles, okay, and the Great Canyon, Grand Canyon is located here. Grand Canyon is located in this part. So Mexican and Mojave. You can see in this continent, we can see here clearly, this is western side of a continent. This is eastern side. Eastern side you don't have a desert. Western side you have a desert. Similarly, Sahara you are having on the western side, not on the eastern side. Of course, though they didn't extended one. Then Thar Desert once again on the western side, not on the eastern side. Similarly, in the south, Atacama Desert. So forget Patagonian Desert. Take Atacama Desert. This is also a hot desert on the western side. Similarly, Namibian and Kalahari hot desert on the western side. Similarly, West Australian Desert on the western side, not on the eastern side. See, West Australian name itself West Australia. Everything is western side. Why? Because this region, see, this will be the belt. Now trade winds, if they are blowing here, they are blowing in which direction? Northeast. So if they are blowing in northeast, by the time come towards this area, they become dry. There are no wind systems in this fashion here. Winds are coming only in this fashion. So if the winds are coming only in this fashion, imagine the impact on it. They will not get much rainfall. Similarly here also, the winds are mostly southeast winds. They are blowing in this direction. So by the time they reach here, they will not have much rainfall, much moisture, because of which they become dry. I hope this is clear to you. Yes. Any doubts? Please answer in the comment section. Then, why these tropical deserts are formed only between 20 degrees to 35 degrees latitudes? The location is 20 degrees to 35 degrees western margins of a continent. So, Mojave Desert or Mexican Desert or Coloranian Desert, Sonoran Desert is found in North America. Saharan Desert in Asia, in Africa. Arabian Desert in Asia, West Asia. Similarly, Thar Desert. West Australian Desert in Australian continent. In the south of the African continent, you also have Namibian and Kalahari Desert on the western side, more or less. Then Atacama Desert on the western side. So everything is west, 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 west. Why? Because western margin latitude itself, you are having a desert because trade winds. What is the reason why it is western margin? Because trade winds become offshore. They don't provide rainfall in this region because trade winds become dry. Offshore means land within coming from land. Onshore means from ocean. Then another thing, etc. You will. This is why they are having is wind subsidence. As you have discussed right now, these entire latitudes of 25 degrees to 35 degrees latitudes are the reason for formation of subtropical high pressure belt. Subtropical high pressure belt. So subtropical high pressure belt, which is located between 25 to 35 degrees, that is the reason why this is a harsh latitude, wind subsidence, no opportunity for moisture to rise and rainfall to occur. You need two conditions: one, moisture; two, rainfall, wind to rise and moisture. So either you are not having moisture because trade winds become dry, at the same time wind cannot rise because there is wind subsidence. So how do rainfall can occur? No lack of rainfall is what is called as a desert. That is the reason why you are having deserts, wind subsidence and trade winds becoming offshore. Then other things which also contributing to become a formation of a desert are cold oceanic currents. So if you can see in this diagram, etc. What is an oceanic current? What is an oceanic current? It is nothing but movement of oceanic water. Movement of oceanic water. If the water is moving from polar to equator, it is cold. If the water is moving from equator to polar, it is warm. So if you see all the deserts, they are surrounded by cold. Californian desert, it is a cold desert coming from polar areas. So here temperatures will be lesser. So whatever the water which is coming is also cooler. Cooler means less moisture. How can they evaporate as quickly? So cold ocean currents, etc. Moisture also will be less around these areas. If moisture is also less, whatever the little winds, whichever are winds are also not blowing, but whatever the little local winds which are blowing, they also are becoming dry because of less moisture. So all the currents are cold in nature, coming from polar areas. So this is also one of the reason why deserts are cooler, or deserts are not having rainfall. So wind subsidence, trade winds becoming dry, which they are moving at these latitudes. That's what western margin latitudes. All the deserts are western margin, and there is no permanent river systems. This is what is a tropical desert region for formation. Then if you see in this diagram, one of the doubt you should get is why Saharan desert is extended to the east, why not other deserts? Why Saharan is called Great Saharan Desert, why not other deserts? Because here there is no distribution of land and water. This region is also land only. So whatever the wind, this okay, forget about this part. So if whatever the desert winds which are supposed to move in this direction here, this is also coming from land itself. Had there been distribution, there been a distribution of land and water here also, and there is a one ocean here, then there might be also the Saharan desert could have extended only until here. As there is only land here, no water, this wind, whatever the trade winds are also eastern, these are dry winds. As there are dry winds, you will not find any kind of rainfall here also. That's why Saharan desert has extended towards the east. I hope this point is clearer. That's why it is called Saharan desert. Anyhow, these are the desert names. Now, yes. Now come back to biomes concept. More geography. Yes. Now come back to biomes. What happening here? What is happening here? Biomes. You have understood location. Where are deserts are formed? Western margins, latitudes 25 to 30, 20 degrees to 35 degrees, latitudes in the western margin of a continent. Western margin continent, 20 to 35 degrees latitudes, you will be finding deserts. Why they are formed? Because here, these are the reasons I have explained until now. Then, after location, distribution. These are the distribution names, names of a desert. I have given the names of a desert here, names of a desert here. Forget the cold deserts, primarily identify the hot deserts. Even in cold deserts, lack of rainfall, you can find similar characteristics. What happens here? Summers are hot to very hot. Winters are warm to cool. Here also winters are warm to cool only. Temperature wise, this is also a tropical area. There is not much of a difference in terms of temperature wise between desert and a savanna. Temperature 20 to 45 degrees centigrade, average 35. But there is more high temperature here because there is high diurnal range. Because land here is not formed of vegetation, rather it is formed because of sand more. Rather, what you need to know is land, rapid heating, rapid cooling. Sand, very rapid heating, very rapid cooling. Whereas water, slow heating, slow cooling. This is because of specific heat. I think you heard the concept called specific heat. Amount of energy required to increase the temperature by 1 degree centigrade. So land in general rapidly heats, rapidly cools. Sand, it very rapidly heats, very rapidly cools. It requires less temperature for sand to be heated up, whereas it requires more temperature for land to be heated up when comparing with land and sand. When compared with land and water, land requires even more water requires even more temperatures to be heated up by 1 degree centigrade. That is what is called specific heat. Because of the nature of the landscape here being sand, there is high diurnal range of temperature. What is this? High diurnal range. Diurnal range means difference between highest temperature and lowest temperature recorded in a day. So, what are the characteristics of climate? Very high climate, rainfall is very, very less. Because, of course, I did not tell about rainfall here. Yes, rainfall less than 50 centimeters. Rainfall less than 50 centimeters. Because of which, what kind of vegetation you find? Natural vegetation is sparse. Natural vegetation is sparse. Grasses, shrubs, herbs are found here. Very less natural vegetation because of less rainfall. Then what kind of vegetation you find? Drought resistant, which you call it as xerophytic. Yes, please remember this word, xerophytic. Xerophytic means drought resistant. Example, cactus. What are the adaptations which you find here? Is these three. Stems that store water, succulent. There will be some stems which can store water. You will be having glossy and waxy leaves. What is this glossy and waxy leaves? Is more thickness which they can be reflecting the sunlight. Glossy and waxy leaves reflecting the sunlight. The vegetation we are having here is thorny vegetation, where they will be having more thorny vegetation is thorny in the nature because they wanted to preserve whatever the water they have. No kind of more, what do you say, chlorophyll. Then long deep roots. Roots are very deeper so that they can extract as much as water as possible. So this is why, and now you have less natural vegetation, less rainfall. Do you find more wildlife? Very less. Few animals like burrowing animals like rabbits. These things here and there can be occasionally seen. What do you find mostly? What wildlife? Burrowing animals, etc. can be seen. You can see in this picture. This is the adaptation of the plants. What happened? Some plants have horizontal root system just below the surface. Some plants have long tap roots 7 to 10 meters deep to reach groundwater. Small leaves and spines or glossy and waxy leaves all reduce water loss. Seeds and can stay dormant for years but can germinate quickly when it rains. See, dormant seeds also can stay dormant. Why? Because rainfall will not be occurring frequently. Some plants store water in the roots, stems, leaves or fruits. These are called succulents. These are all the adaptations because of the less rainfall which you are finding here. Why it is less rainfall? I think I have explained this topic very clearly until now. I have taken so much amount of time to explain less rainfall here because of these two reasons of trade winds becoming offshore and wind subsidence. For these two simple words of wind subsidence and trade winds becoming offshore, I have explained entire geographical concepts. This is what the adaptations which you find in desert. I hope this point is clearer to you. Tomorrow we'll continue with the other biomes, etc. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Before I log out, etc., please don't forget to subscribe the Let's Crack UPSC CSE English channel of Unacademy in YouTube. Please hit the bell icon for continuously receiving the notifications of when are my classes and all other classes, etc. And while you are subscribing that Unacademy in the Unacademy app, etc., please you tend to use my code VE10 to get a discount of 10%. Thank you. Have a nice day. See you tomorrow.